Welcome to On Therapy with Simon Paul. I'm Simon Sanborn.
And I'm Paul Jacobson.
What are we
And
doing? What are we doing today, Paul?
yeah, before we get started, Simon, I just want to let people know that as we go with this podcast, we are going to talk about some hard topics. And I want people to be aware as they're listening, there might be some things that are very triggering to people. And I just want to be sensitive to that. Just let you know that some topics that we bring up might really hit home to people. And just to be, you know, aware of that as you listen to our podcast.
Yeah, for sure. And we know as therapists that, when we listen and hear things, sometimes we get triggered too. It's like, oh
Hmm.
boy, we're talking about a subject that maybe I can relate to really strongly. And so
Yeah.
it's good to be
Right.
aware of those things. And we're kind of trained to be that way, but it's good for
Hmm.
people that are listening. And for those who are just joining us, welcome. We're glad you're here. This podcast is focused on demystifying therapy for men and trying to help people understand kind of what therapy might be like
Hmm.
to see if we can soften the worry or the anxiety that surrounds having to go in and talk to a stranger about the things you're struggling with. And we've talked about the idea of that, therapy is just finding some understanding for yourself, finding, you're not broken, then you don't need to be fixed, but can we understand why we process the way we process? Can we understand why we have the feelings we have? Do we need to figure out how to express them in a different way that lands better for people that are in our lives? But
Hmm.
the whole idea of the podcast is just trying to get people in so they can get talking about some of the stresses that are going on. But today's topic is going to be on suicide. And so I think a good idea might be, Paul, for maybe you throw out your ideas at this point, or you can throw out some of the stats that you kind of know about, but wherever
Yeah.
you want to start, I'm cool with.
Yeah, let's do that. Suicide's such an important topic, and it's one of those topics that people just, don't want to talk about. Uh, it was a very private thing, and most of us have been impacted by maybe somebody close to us that has died by suicide. Um,
Yeah.
it's an important topic to talk about and to know about. Um, and so I just want to bring up some statistics for men specifically. Okay. So men die by suicide four times as often as women do, Simon.
Hmm.
And um, let's see, men over the age of 75 have the highest suicide rate of any group. So you think of, elderly men, you wonder just, of maybe some end of life things, or
Hmm.
maybe they've lost a partner, a spouse, or some close family, some really challenging things in that age group of 75 or older.
Hmm. I think it's a good point, a good thing to point out too, Paul, because it just shows that it lands in every demographic.
Yeah,
And we would assume that if you're over 75, you've lived a long enough life that you have enough understanding about how things work and things like that. But it just tells you that no matter what age you are, that can be something that kind of can show up, and it's really scary and it's really hard to process through and deal with.
right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Suicide is a leading cause of death, Simon, especially for men aged 10 to 34. It's the second uh, leading cause of death.
Mm,
Um, Nearly half of suicides occur among men between 35 and 64. And men tend to use more lethal means,
mm,
uh, uh, firearms, things like that. Highly, highly dangerous. Um, and I think it's important too for us, Simon, to just in talking about suicide, talking about some things that could lead to it, uh,
mm.
and the intrusive thoughts that happen. And I think it's important for us to talk about intrusive thoughts and what that actually means. You know, some people maybe heard that term, but um, some men might, and of course women too. Um, but they may have thoughts that are just like on a treadmill. They're just going and
Mhm.
going and just really just not entering or not leaving their thoughts. It might even be in their dreams, right? Where
Mhm.
it's just uh this maybe feeling of just wanting the pain to end or the struggle to end or um their lack of motivation or whatever it might be
Yeah.
that they're really struggling with. They may just have this recurring thoughts of, man, I just want it to be over. I want it
Mm.
done. And
Yeah.
it's where those suicidal thoughts can enter.
Yeah.
So,
And life's pressure can be so much. And I know some people have thought of suicide as a weakness in a sense of like somebody giving up, somebody not trying hard enough, all those pieces, which then for me just goes back into like almost shaming somebody
yes,
for getting to a
exactly.
space where my life is so difficult right now. I don't see any escape. I see no answers for anything. This is my only option.
Yeah.
And I think understanding that the pressure that life gives us in that we're all human and that we're all going through similar things. I even said once to a friend, why would wouldn't it be better to, instead of escaping the situation by ending your life, to like sell all your possessions and move to Paraguay or something. Like just remove yourself from the whole entire thing. Like it
Hmm.
seems like this, what
Yeah.
is it about this life that is so difficult
Yeah.
that this is it? Like this is only me and only this situation and I can't get out of it that leads to that.
Yeah. Right. Hmm.
And I think it's hard. I mean, again, this is the
It's hard.
whole fucking point of this podcast is can I, I had a friend one time who wasn't talking about active suicide, but was, having kind of some of those thoughts. And, I'm not his therapist, but I'm his friend. And so I was like, just do me a huge favor. Would you please go talk to someone before
Right.
you go that route? Because we can't stop people from doing that, right? We
Right.
can't stop people from dying by suicide. But I was like, give yourself an opportunity, give yourself a chance. Because yes, it feels and it seems like there is no way out. If this is going to be a terrible simplification, but if I have a struggle at my job and I'm bogged down and I can't figure it out and I'm struggling and struggling and struggling, I'm going to go to my boss and say, hey, I can't figure this problem out. I can't solve this thing and it's driving me crazy
Hmm.
and I really need some help to figure it out. Oh yeah, move these pieces around or do this or do that, and we'll see how it goes. Like you're going to ask for help for other areas of your life. What
Yeah.
is keeping men from coming into a therapist or a counselor or their minister at their church or a priest? Like I don't care who it is.
Hmm.
What's keeping men from the idea of I can go and talk to somebody about this because I'm at the point where I want to end everything.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a couple really important points there, Simon, of just having somebody in your life that you can talk to about these things, you know,
Mhm.
and for people who are struggling to be able to feel like they can actually let somebody know
Mm.
uh, that, man, I am not feeling safe with myself right now.
Hmm.
I need to talk to somebody and for us to be prepared to be that person for others.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure, but to be able to know what to do if we have a friend or family member that brings something up like that. Some options be call 988, suicide hotline, 911. Some communities have mobile crisis, so
Mm.
therapists can be right on the phone talking with someone or even go to their house. Uh, is, you know, if we do have people who are going through this and they've openly talked about it, keeping them safe is priority number one.
Hmm.
And sometimes, we might have to take someone to the hospital, take them to the ER or something. Uh, Safety's priority.
Yeah, and so I'm going to offer you a tough question, okay?
Yeah,
Um, if we're thinking of somebody who's listening to this podcast and they're struggling with their mental health or the pressure of life, and not just necessarily if they're suicidal, but if they're wanting some help to get some things kind of figured out,
yeah.
what do you think that person can look for in support from a therapist, maybe, or give an idea or an impression of what, well, shit, let's just do this. I'll just say you have somebody come to you and they say, I'm suicidal.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that you do in your practice? I'm happy to share mine too, but I just thought I would just offer to you,
Yeah,
like, what do you think about those situations and how do you process them?
right. Well, first, I want to really hear the story and validate the struggle that they're in. Uh, I want to know more details. So, for example, have they created a plan?
Mm,
Do they have the means to actually do what they're saying? Uh,
hmm
and we want to be able to know um, who knows these things. How can we keep these people in the loop?
mm,
How can we communicate it um, so we can keep ourselves safe? And we feel like we can tell them when we're really scared. It's
hmm
not common for somebody to be very scared that they can't stop it. So, those are things I'm assessing for.
hmm
Um, and, with people going to therapy, our job is to keep things confidential, except when somebody's life is at risk or they're
hmm
going to hurt somebody else. And then we need to step out of our office and involve some other people
hmm
to help keep these people safe.
Along with the lines you were saying about what you do in therapy. So having somebody be safe matters. And so us, stepping out of that role and not having that confidentiality necessarily anymore in that situation is
Yeah,
just for somebody's safety. It's really
right.
just to keep them safe. But and again, we're not saying anything else other than we're trying to keep them safe. We're not going to say all the background, all the information we have, all that
Mm.
stuff's confidential. So it doesn't share, but we want to keep them safe. I think that, when I have people who I assess for suicidality, it's more along the lines of where are they at? Like, do they actively have a plan and the means
Right,
to do so?
right.
Um, do they feel like they want to end their own life? And that's it. They don't have a plan. They don't have any means. We're trying to see the levels of where we're at, so to speak, so that we
Yeah.
can, see if we need to, I mean, I've gone through lots of safety plans with people, and that's
Mm.
not necessarily because they were actively having all these terrible things. It was like, this has come up once in a while when things have gotten hard. And so I just want to make sure that I'm aware. And then it allows me the
Yeah.
space to be able to check in too. Hey man, how's the week been going? These things have happened. Okay, any suicidality kind of popping up for you or anything like that?
Yes, yes,
No, this
yes.
is really hard. It was a hard week, but no, I haven't had any thoughts like
Yeah.
that. Okay, cool. We can get back into the session. So it's just an opportunity for us to kind of check in as well. But I do, the feeling of responsibility as a therapist, um, is an interesting part of this too. Like, one of my kids asked me, like, what would happen, not just suicide, but like, what if you see a couple and they end up getting divorced? Do you feel like you failed? Right?
Hmm.
I think suicide could be part of this. You have a client you're working with and they die by suicide.
Yeah.
Do you take that personally? And I think the honest answer is it's hard. It hasn't happened to me yet. So, and I hope it never happens. But chances are it's likely in the profession we're in. And so I think that I would be really sad and it would be a really difficult thing to go through to try to wrap your head around what anybody else would be experiencing. Could I have done more? Did I miss the signs? I hear
Right.
that a lot from spouses who are left behind. We didn't see anything. We didn't know anything was wrong. You know, a lot of people that I have known who have died by suicide, where everybody was shocked. Everybody was shocked. They were the person to go to get help. They were the person to go to do these things, and they involved in the community this way. And I'm like, wow. So this person really was in a state of mind that nobody was picking up on, or would it be fair to say that we do a damn good job of hiding a lot of those feelings and suppressing them, which
Right.
then comes back to therapy, which is we work really hard at not suppressing those feelings, and
Yeah.
trying to express them and
Right.
say them out loud. And I get the fear, I get the fear of saying anything, but I think it's also fair to say too, I'm a stranger, if you can say anything to me and that's okay. Like I don't know where I was going with that, but there's an aspect of it too where you don't know me from anybody. So,
Right.
you can tell me all your shit, but I'm not going to tell anybody about it, and it's only me. So
Yeah.
there's some space there too for people who, if somebody's thinking about coming into therapy and they want to talk, and they're worried and nervous about talking about big things, big feelings, big ideas of what's going on, the pressure of life. That's the best part to me is that when somebody can show up in the therapeutic space, as we call it, and be able to express themselves. Well, first of all, just showing up here says a ton. So
Mhm.
that to me, I really hold on to that too for them. If they really are struggling with things, being like, well, hey man, you showed up here, and that really
Mhm.
matters.
Mhm.
And from here, it's growth.
Yep.
And even if we stumble along and we take two steps forward and one step back, like it's all growth. We're moving in a great direction to figure out what's going on, so to speak. But I think that safety plan is really important. I think it also brings it out into light in a
Yes,
way.
absolutely, Simon. I was going to really highlight that is something that you had brought up is just assessing for it. To, so it isn't uncommon for therapists to ask a client who's really maybe struggling with depression or going through a really challenging time in their life, a lot of adjustment, let's say, um, for therapists to ask, are you having any suicidal thoughts? Is it, and we want to be able to assess risk and
Mm,
where people are at, and then actually um, having that topic be asked. So when um, a client feels like they are going through those things, then that's the window or the door to talk about it. If
hmm
it's never brought up by a therapist, then it makes it so much harder to actually say it.
mm.
But if a therapist is assessing for that off and on, um, then it makes it easier that, hey, yeah, by the way, this is something that just lately I've been really having a lot of thoughts about this. And
Mm.
it's a good opportunity to be really open about it.
Yeah, and I think when you have people talking about like that, like there's a lot of fear there. Like, holy shit,
Yeah,
life
yeah,
has gotten so big for me that I think I want to escape the whole entire thing. That's really scary stuff to bump into, so to
right.
speak.
Yeah.
And I think there's some importance to normalize it in a sense, and and I'm not trying to minimize it. I want to like, oh, everybody has tough times. It's not that. It's more of like everybody does have tough times, and how do we cope with it? How do we deal with it? Um, do I have people to talk to? Maybe somebody doesn't have anybody to talk to, right? And I think that's why I believe so much in therapy. Um, I've said this before. I had a friend give me a hard time lovingly about, oh, you just want to get more clients, and so you and Paul are doing a podcast, and that's fair. but we're not doing it to get more clients. We're doing it to get people in to see a therapist for sure.
Therapist.
But if
Mhm.
you're in a state of mind where you feel like you want to end your life, anybody you want to reach out to is an important person to reach out to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I can see, I mean, it's nerve-wracking. I mean, I can see like I'm struggling with all these other things. Now I got to do something else, to try to figure out what's going on. Or, often we're thinking like, what's wrong with me? I'm broken. I think this way about it, or this is my life, and this is what I've built my life up to be. And so I've put myself in this position. I'm the only person to blame for what's happening. Like there's so many pieces, and I think it probably goes right to what you're talking about with the rumination that happens. We build up this story in our heads of all the things that have caused us to be in this place. We've just stacked it up and added pressure on top of pressure.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say that seeing a therapist is going to relieve all that pressure, but talking to a therapist might give you an opportunity to release a little bit of pressure. And I was thinking, just talking with that with some of the people in my supervisory group about not, this was not about that suicide in particular, but it was about relieving pressure.
So, Simon, one area that I want to talk about that therapists tend to assess for too is some protective factors. Right?
Hmm.
What are some reasons? Let's say, for example, I'm sitting with someone who, is really having intrusive thoughts and are contemplating suicide. I'd want to know what are the things that they want to live for.
Hmm.
It might be uh, that they have really invested a lot into their job and they don't want to lose their job. That part might bring them joy. Okay?
Hmm.
It might be their kids, it might be their spouse, it might be their family, or things, some other things in their life that um, they want to live for. Right?
Hmm.
They might be trying to really hold on to life, sadly. And then they
Yeah,
might
I
be,
was just gonna say any kind of lifeline you can find, it
Mhm.
matters.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when people have those things, those are protective factors from suicide,
Yeah.
uh, reasons to live. And,
Hmm.
how can we really try to strengthen those relationships or those factors?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, I've never contemplated suicide or had a plan or anything like that, but I definitely had moments. I think I remember myself my senior year in high school
Hmm.
and having ended a relationship, was getting ready to graduate, barely. This is before I knew of my ADHD and my dyslexia, so thank God I got through high school. But I remember feeling this way, and my grandfather, Ernest J. Troutner, he was a Methodist minister, wonderful guy, my mentor, my dad's mentor. Um, I called him, and this is how I remember it. I was in the kitchen looking through the refrigerator, and I had that old phone with the big long
Yeah,
squiggly cord,
of
right?
course.
And I remember talking to him while I'm going through the
Like
refrigerator
this. Yeah.
and telling him that, hey Gramps, I just don't know what I'm gonna do. And
Right.
I feel lost, and I wasn't even feeling the pressure of life necessarily at that point, or maybe I was, a perceived life or an expectation possibly. But I was just walking through my thinking with him, and he was a
Yeah.
very safe person to talk to. And I knew he loved me and cared about me, and it was going to be he was safe.
Yeah.
And yeah, he gave me some really good advice, about just trying to keep my perspectives broad.
Mhm.
Probably hope and possibility, like you spoke to, was an aspect of that. And he was a counselor for his church and his church groups and things like that. So he did have, I mean, he had a
Mm.
doctorate in theology, I want to say
Yeah.
probably,
Hmm.
but he had some counseling stuff in there as well.
Right.
And I think that
Right.
that safety, I would love to end up like my grandfather. He was such a cool guy, but I think that's that's something that we can provide. That's kind of the key part of it is being able to talk to someone to just get those things out and get them out in the open. Sunlight is the biggest disinfectant, talking about it, getting out in the open. But that we get, this is how I think of that. We get the opportunity to show up for somebody. And that's one of my most grateful things I
Yeah.
have about being a therapist is
Right.
I get to be present with somebody through a really difficult time, say.
Right.
And I think I want to put that out there. I'm not, I mean, I don't think everybody necessarily thinks that way about it, but I think that that's what we're built for. That's what
Mhm.
we've gone to school for. Like we're here to show up for people, and we're here to show up in a non-judgmental, safe space so that if there's somebody out there who is trying to think about getting into therapy and they feel like it's a failure to do so, like I can't handle life. Life is too big, so I can't do it. I can't suck it up and take care of things. We get to those places where we're really talking down to ourselves,
Yeah.
really kind of we're putting ourselves into those spaces of hopelessness
Yeah.
and no possibility. And I think that that's the great, again, the thing I'm most grateful for to be a therapist is to be able to show up for anybody in whatever situation they're dealing with.
Right.
And I just think it's this is the place to do it. Like this is the place to go when things seem dire for sure.
Mhm.
And then when you go back to that philosophy thing, that's just an opportunity to understand how'd you get to that place? What was happening for you? What were you experiencing?
Yeah.
What was your upbringing like that informed you had to go down this path and do these things that you now have yourself caught in a situation where you see no
Yeah.
exit from?
Right.
And again, we're not blaming, we're not, telling, this person was horrible and they're the cause of your problems. We're just understanding what might have taken place to get us to this spot, and
Hmm.
we get the opportunity to show up for people in that space to talk about those things. And it's hard to talk about. I get that, but
For sure.
you're meeting with somebody who is prepared to talk about those things in this
Yeah.
space. It's what we're here for. It's our jobs. And so
Mhm.
we're, I guess maybe this is an open invitation for anybody to
Yeah.
speak to a therapist if they're feeling like life is getting them down to the point where they're suicidal, or they just feel like life is just dumping on them and they need to talk to somebody about it and get it out if they're
Yep.
not suicidal. So I just think that I just want to put that out there, this invitation to find somebody to speak to because we don't have to carry this load alone.
Right.
And I think most people know that when they call and talk to a buddy or call and talk to a girlfriend or their mom or their dad or or their grandpa in my case, like that's the kind of space we want to generate for people to be able to be that person to reach out to and talk about things. And hopefully we're doing a good enough job to build rapport and they know that about us. But if you're stepping in for the first time, that's where we're coming from. At least that's from my point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
How do you conceptualize that for yourself?
Hmm. Well, I obviously want to be a person as a therapist anyway. I want to be that person for my clients to be able to talk about these things and to recognize that how quickly things can turn for
Mm,
people, um, and to really have created that foundation, that rapport, that relationship that, um, you know, clients can be going from, doing pretty well, coping with things, and then suddenly something happens to them. Uh, they're in a bind of some, some type of bind that they just can't get out of. Uh,
hmm.
they can't find a way to get out of, to be able to talk about that. And
Yeah.
Simon, I want to just share quickly. Uh, this is a story of something that I've personally gone through of how quick things can turn around and how, um, sometimes it might be something that we haven't really done, but it could be something that we become aware of that
Mm,
can be like just really scary and daunting and we feel like we can't get out of, we can't escape it.
mm.
we want like out of this situation right now. And that can really lead to some feelings of doom. I
Mm,
want to talk about that real quick. Um,
please.
it's been almost 10 years ago where my wife and I were working hard on opening a coffee shop here in Ames, Iowa. And in 2018, like this was really becoming a reality,
Mm,
where Tammy and I had paid down on a lot of our debt. We were really doing well, but we decided to open this coffee shop, which was almost a 2-year process of being able to just get the loan and all the planning and finding a location. It was so much work. Um, and so we were really well on our way of opening the shop. We are within a couple months, construction had started. We had taken out about a $500,000 loan. We were working really hard at accomplishing this fantastic dream. Uh,
mm,
and Tammy and I went on vacation. We were with her family. We were on a lake up in northern Minnesota. Everything was just going fantastic. It was great. We were just gotten out of school. And these new dreams were coming. Like life
mm,
was good. Uh, and I get a call from my principal and he said, "Hey, Paul, hey, I just want to let you know that your teaching license expired."
mm,
And I thought, what? I thought at that moment, I thought I had one more year on my teaching license. Oh, crap, it's expired. I need to get on this right now. And I actually started really thinking these very scary thoughts of, am I going to lose my job? Am I going
mm,
to get fired? Like I need this job uh, for, I loved it. I loved being a school counselor. And, it brought tremendous security to my wife and I. And I had a fantastic retirement all planned out. And I needed this job to help fund us surviving the coffee shop if we weren't making a profit right away.
mm,
And so I just got to be very scared. I remember walking out onto the dock, like 100 feet from shore, and I was on the phone with my principal, and he said, Paul, just apply for your license as soon as you can. I'm going to uh, call the superintendent, and we'll talk about it. And we'll call you right away. And I get off the phone with my principal, and it just makes my skin crawl right now.
mm,
I was so scared, Simon. I felt like everything was falling apart. Here I was just 10 minutes ago on vacation, loving life. Uh,
mm,
Everything was great. Having this new exciting opportunity with the coffee shop, I was really in a good place until found that out. And
mm,
I had told my principal, absolutely, I'll get on it right away. I'll get my license renewed, and I was so scared. And I had a fantastic friend who was a principal at another school district. And I called him. I said, "Hey, man, this is happening to me. I don't know what to do. Am I going to lose my job?" I just needed to hear from a good friend, like what's going to happen.
yeah. How scary.
And, he said, "Oh, Paul, I have this is happening to a few people in my school right now. You just need to apply for your license. You're going to be okay. You'll just get it renewed and everything will be all right." And I said, "So you don't think I'm going to like get fired or something?" Because I was so scared. He goes, "Oh no, Paul, this happens all the time. You're going to be okay." And
Mm,
you know, I, that was so comforting. I just needed to hear that from him, that I was going to be all right.
yeah.
So I get off the phone with him. My superintendent calls me. Said, "Hey, Paul, hey, yeah, I just want to let you know I found out that you your license is expired, and do you think you can just get that? Can you apply for it to get renewed? Like, have you taken your classes to get it renewed? I said, yeah, yeah, I have. I've taken the classes. I've taken like 10 classes. I am good
Yeah.
there. So I just needed to apply. He goes, okay,
Mm,
Paul, you're like the fifth person in our school whose license has expired and you just need to renew it. So, okay,
mm,
will do, but right now, you know,
mm,
and heck, I got it like an email notification right away. It's like 20 hours later. I get the notification from the state, my license is renewed, and I'm good to go.
mm,
But in just seconds, I went from being on a fantastic vacation with my family to suddenly feeling like I'm going to lose my job. I just borrowed $500,000.
mm,
What in the hell am I going to do? And I was so scared. And, calling my buddy, it's a principal, and I've told him this numerous times. Like, he just made me feel at peace that everything
mm.
was going to be okay. Right? Um, my principal, my superintendent handled it so well.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't
Wow.
feel like I was a horrible person or anything. They were very understanding, and we got it all squared away. You know,
Right. But
uh,
that
yeah,
roller coaster,
yeah, roller coaster.
holy cow. Man, Paul,
Yeah,
I just love you so much. I so appreciate you
yeah,
sharing that story. It's got me a little weepy. Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's
I know it's a hard time.
it's
Hmm.
you can find yourself in those moments where you're just like, I'm fucked.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you
And
know what
what
I
am I going
mean?
to do? Like I'm
Right.
usually pretty good at being able to overcome adversity. But in this moment in time, I felt like my whole world was falling in.
Mm,
I was very scared. And I understood, Simon. I understood how suicide can happen for people
mm.
like in an instant. Like from everything going great to not, like real quick.
God damn, that's scary.
Yeah.
In my heart, I think part of my tears is my heart's like breaking for you a little bit too, of like the high and the possibilities and the hope that you're experiencing.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the drop of that, like everything I'm feeling right now or what I was feeling 10 minutes ago is now completely gone. And I'm the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
And now what do I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
God damn,
Well,
what a great example of how fast that can happen. And let's I'll throw it out there like somebody who's quote unquote got it together. You know what I mean?
hmm. Yeah.
And God, I'm so grateful for your friend.
Me too. Yeah.
That's probably why I'm thinking too of like, oh my God, what if Paul wasn't around? Holy shit. Like that would be
Yeah.
devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I really appreciate that. And I think that's such a great opportunity. So if somebody out there is feeling like that, like the bottom just dropped out of my life, what in the fuck am I gonna do?
Hmm.
And knowing that
Yeah.
you have friends you can reach out to, and if you don't have anybody to reach out to, you have those numbers 988, you
Yep.
have crisis hotlines in your area, you have 911,
Hmm.
and
Right.
you need to grab onto those lifelines,
For sure.
and I think
Absolutely.
immediately for your own safety, for sure.
Hmm.
And then I think that you can pull that back in at some point so that you can go and understand what was happening and
Yeah.
talk through that with somebody. Because
Hmm.
I think a lot of men feel the weight of the world on their shoulders as providers or the fixer in the family, which is great at times, but can also be overwhelming. Um, there's so many pressures, and I'm not minimizing anybody else's.
Hmm.
Women have the same kind of pressures in different
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm.
Um, But women are a little bit more accessible to their feelings, it feels like at times. And men tend to
Yeah.
suppress them and push them down. And I'm going to fight through this. I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to do the things I have to do. But we can only preserve things so long until the way I think about it, our brains just kind of short out almost I
Yeah.
don't even know how to phrase it correctly, but like we get to
Yeah.
a point where, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think I might have mentioned this in our first podcast, is I used to have this feeling of like, okay, if somebody gets to that point where life is horrible and I have no way out, you know, that's acceptable, right? Life is so terrible that this is an acceptable thing to do. We all have our own autonomy. Now knowing that that's not autonomy, that that's a desperation, that we feel that we don't have clear thinking, that we aren't thinking clearly about it. It's not to
Right.
minimize what's happening by any stretch. It's more of like our brain has got to a capacity that it can't process and get through this anymore. And I
Mhm.
talk a lot with my clients about this machine on top of this meat sack and what it does and what it's supposed to be doing, because we're all born with anxiety. Otherwise, we wouldn't be an existing species. We all
Yeah.
are born with anxiety. We
Mhm.
have these things, and yes, life can compound that as well. And so it's not our fault sometimes that our brains go to this level. And sometimes we get the opportunity to step in and say, okay, let me see if I can understand this machine better.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And so Simon, I want to just talk more about um, reaching out to people and the people who are there for others real
Mm,
quick. So, um, suicide is a topic that people just don't want to talk about. It's touchy, it's hard, um, and it's important to talk about. For parents to talk to their kids about, friends to be able to talk about it, um, for schools to be able to talk about it.
hmm
Yeah. Um, we need to have people understand that when we have talked about this, we we definitely open the door to be able to talk about it when things are hard,
hmm
you know? Um, let's say, for example, in schools, if teachers in a health class, let's say, PE class or whatever it might be, talk about depression, anxiety, mental health, suicide risks, when we're actually talking about it.
hmm
It Students know, okay, well, you must be a safe person then. You must be a person I can talk to about this,
hmm
or you must know somebody who can help, right? I want to add to this too, and how when somebody opens up about maybe being suicidal, oftentimes they want it to be held as a secret
hmm
or very, very private. That please don't tell anybody. Okay.
hmm
And especially young people can not know what to do with that. Like, okay, well, my best friend just told me I need to keep this as a secret, so I can't tell anybody,
hmm
right? But then they have to hold on to that. They have to, hold on to that secret if so, right? That's a heavy, heavy weight for anybody, and especially young people to
mm
hold on to,
Yeah.
right? And so just like us therapists, like if somebody tells us that they are suicidal, we really have a responsibility to assess them, assess the risk, but then to involve loved ones, those protective factors,
mm
to involve some loved ones that can help keep them safe. And
Yeah.
so I want to say, if you're a person who's heard from a friend or a family member or some coworker or something that they are suicidal and they want you to keep it a secret, to not do that.
mm
You need to keep this person safe.
Yeah.
So who is it that we can talk to help keep you safe? Because some people are not in that situation, are not able to keep themselves safe. So they need loved ones that
Yeah.
can keep them safe, right?
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. I just
Yeah.
feel
Those
like that's
lifelines are so
important to get out there.
important. Say that again. I'm sorry.
It's just important to get out there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at my son's school, Go Linmar Lions, and I saw a bunch of teachers wearing shirts that on the front said, End the stigma, and on the back said, Mental health matters.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I like that. Good for you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're aware of those kind of things, that they know that this kind of, yeah, kids under pressure. I mean, oh my goodness.
Yes.
When it comes to
Oh,
school and
yeah.
requirements, and we're
Yeah.
not even talking about the social aspect of that, it's
Right.
like it's a lot of pressure. And you're also a teenager going through all the teenager puberty ups and downs, emotional, hormone kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a messy time and it's really difficult and it's difficult. And we've all, I mean, us adults have experienced it too, so we've been through that rigmarole and it's so hard and we're so able to recognize it and be so understanding to it,
Hmm.
and so I think, yeah, I think anybody who's feeling the kind of pressure that they feel like taking their own life is a route they want to go, it's important to realize that there's lifelines out there for us and that the stigma is changing, that people aren't as, I don't know, scared to go into therapy and figure out what's
Right.
going on and what's
Oh, yeah.
what's happening. And I love the idea that the stigma is changing, which of course is the main reason of this podcast, is we
Right.
want to be able to I think probably what you said in the beginning, we're here to elicit hope,
Hmm.
and find the light that's
Yeah.
still there.
Right.
We think the light's gone. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to speak to anybody that can show us a little bit of hope, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in a tough situation we might be dealing with, or life's, falling down on top of us, or in your case, the rug's being pulled out from underneath you, and you're like, holy shit, what am I going to do about
Right.
this? Yeah. 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 Scary stuff. And I think really important to touch on that we as therapists, again, are built for this. And we know these are possibilities of people coming in and talking about it.
Yeah.
And we're prepared. Because I mean, I've had clients in the past of like, oh, I don't want to just have, I just want to talk about negative things all the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to bring up tough things sometimes. Or I remember hearing somebody saying, um, boy, you probably had a long day of listening to lots of different things that are hard. I don't want to add to that, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like, hey man,
Hmm.
bring it on.
Yeah.
This is what we're built for. We're
Right.
here to do this. It's not that we're, being self-abusive or anything. We're just like, this is why we're here. This is what we
Hmm.
decided to do with our lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to know that's why we're here. We're not here to blame you. We're not here to judge you. We're just here to see if there's some way we can help you find that light at the end of the tunnel and feel like there's a direction to move forward so that you can either cope with, process differently to get through these difficult times in life. Because what I say to a lot of my clients is I'm so glad you're feeling better about these things because we both know that life's not going to stop happening. Life's not going to stop throwing us curveballs. Life's not, not going to not stop throwing up walls and speed bumps or whatever analogy you want to put in there. It's going to continue. And so you can gain some skills on
Right.
how to cope, on how to deal with
Right.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And that's really the whole point of being able to, go through therapy to be able to tolerate a lot more, you know,
Hmm.
and instead of having lots of things just really getting to us uh, through therapy, oftentimes we can just tolerate things. We're not triggered as often. Things aren't stressing us out. It's like we can go do things that we never thought we could before. We have
Hmm.
so much more courage, right? And aren't just stuck. It's just easier.
Hmm.
I one metaphor I have, and Simon, you know me, but the listeners will get to know me on this, is that I use a lot of metaphors. And so uh, one metaphor I use is it just turns down the volume, you know?
Mm.
Uh, Instead of our anxiety being at an 8, it's at a 2. It's like, man, this is just so much easier.
Hmm. Yeah, and knowing, and I think it's always important to remember too that we are kind of built this way.
Hmm.
We are kind of built this way that we know. Sorry, did that pop up on your screen too?
It did.
Okay. So let's wrap things up, but I'll finish my thought.
Okay.
Um, that we have that, oh, damn it. I lost my thought. Shit. That's okay. All right. Let's wrap it up. That'll be okay.
So you want to think about it for a sec? Um,
Do you remember what you said last minute or so?
yeah, I was talking about turning down the volume and
Mm,
that our anxiety is at like
yeah.
oftentimes it feels like at a 2 because we're just able to handle things better.
Okay.
Our window of
Yeah.
tolerance changes.
There you go. I like that. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking of something else, but that being said, I like your comment I like the idea of a window of tolerance and being able to turn the volume down. Like I think those are great metaphors. I'm not so good with metaphors. I love metaphors and they are
Mhm.
useful, but I often joke around with my clients. I often don't get a good metaphor. I think I do, and then it's like, oh, that didn't land. Uh, and I mean, I
I
kind of
do
make
that
it.
too, Simon.
Yeah, and I make it kind of a fun, jokey thing of like, sorry, man, I'm
Exactly.
trying my best. But again, I think that's one of the nice parts about therapy too, is we get to be human beings in those situations too, of just like, we don't always say the right thing, and it doesn't always land, that we make mistakes as well. But
For
well,
sure.
Paul, I think this has been a really, really great conversation. I'm sure we'll revisit it at some point.
Hmm.
Um, did you have any closing thoughts before we got done?
Yeah. I just quickly, Simon, one thing you talked about is a client that comes in and says, you've probably heard all kinds of hard things today. I don't really want to talk about that. Two things. Sometimes people who are depressed or maybe having suicidal thoughts can feel like a burden. It's like, I
Mm,
just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to weigh somebody down. I don't want somebody to feel
right.
bad, right? Uh, and in therapy, it's a place that is not a burden. We want to be there. Uh, and most friends and family do not see it as a burden. They love and care, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, right?
Hmm.
I understand there's situations where people may not feel loved or cared for. I get that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's why those hotlines are out there. If you don't have somebody,
exactly.
there's people
Yeah.
that are there
Yeah.
on purpose to be showing up for you. So,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you everybody for listening today. Tough topic. And you can kind of tell I'm an emotional guy. Those kind of things hit me, especially about people that I love and I care about. When I hear about stressful things like that, it's hard. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this podcast. We appreciate you giving us that time. And if you're out there and you need support and you need help because you're feeling suicidal, 988 is the great number to call. Your local crisis hotlines will be available. 911 if you're really feeling unsafe. Please reach out to somebody and get some support. And we're here for you. And we love you. We care about you. And we want what's best for you. And that's the whole reason why we're doing this podcast. So I really appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Appreciate it.
You bet, buddy. Have a good rest of your day, night, week, whatever, everybody. And we'll see you in a week.
All right.
Adios.
Yeah.
All right. And now for our disclaimer. The content shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental health treatment, diagnoses, or advice. Although we are licensed therapists, this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship between the host and the listeners. The discussions, examples, and opinions shared are based on our professional experience and perspectives, but they are not personalized to your specific situation. If you're experiencing emotional distress, mental health concerns, or a crisis, We strongly encourage you to seek support from a qualified mental health professional in your area. If you are in immediate danger or need urgent assistance, please contact local emergency services or a crisis hotline. In the US, you can call 988 for suicide hotline. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts are not providing therapy, counseling, or clinical services, and any actions you take based on the content are your own responsibility. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of trauma, mental health challenges, or sensitive experiences. Thanks.